Number one is comprised of 4 simple steps, but we got to get these because this is the foundation. Okay, what are those steps? Well, number one is comprised of challenges. Every single human being on the planet faces challenges. Now, we think that people with Asperger syndrome, seriously, are the only ones that have problems and difficulties. Whatever you want to call them, I prefer to call them challenges because that implies that these are things that can be overcome. And the answer, of course, is no. I mean, everybody has challenges, not just people with Asperger syndrome, but it's very important to point out at the very beginning that people with Asperger syndrome, people with autism, have very special kinds of challenges that need to be confronted in the special kinds of ways. Okay, I can think of an analogy just off the top of my head. There are different kinds of machines that require maintenance. Some of them are electrical machines, some of them are automotive machines, some of them are gas engines, some of them are diesel engines, and they're similar in that they're all engines, but they're different in that they require different types of maintenance. So you need experts for each one. Well, people with Asperger syndrome and autism in general, think of that as just a type of engine, and even with that, there's variations, but it takes special kind of attention. So number one is we have challenges, and when we face challenges, we really don't have a whole lot of choice but to develop patience. Psychologists have a term for patience. They call it impulse control. Everybody has a problem with impulse control. The other day I was at the foot doctor, and I had a heel spur, and so the doctor was working on my foot. And I made a mistake of watching him. And he was doing something. It wasn't painful, but just watching him do something made me jump. I mean, like a foot. Okay, that's a joke. I didn't even think of it. Okay, but my foot jumped a foot. And he told me, don't do that, because he's working on my foot. And I couldn't help it. I had zero impulse control whatsoever. So I learned from that experience, don't watch the guy, because even though it wasn't painful, there was something that triggered a triggering mechanism in my mind that said, okay, jump. I mean, it was like instantaneous. So the point of all that is we all have a problem with impulse control. And as we go through the experiences in life, whether it's rejection as an Aspie or having a foot doctor, what the guy was doing is he was grinding down my toenail. Yeah, it's like going to a dentist, only it didn't hurt. But there was something in my brain that said, this is supposed to hurt, even though it didn't. So I learned, it doesn't hurt. And I also learned, don't look at the guy when he's doing that stuff. So we have challenges, which develops patience or impulse control. And number 3, and again, this is still 4 parts of step 1, is experience. And experience, psychologists refer to as, if we learn from it, is neuroplasticity. That is to say that our mind literally changes. You've heard of thought reform. Normally, we talk about that in a negative connotation, but there's a lot of very positive thought reform that needs to happen. For example, if you are I don't want to use the word addicted because YouTube doesn't like that. It kind of dings you for using that term, but let me use the word dependent. So if you are dependent on a subject and you want to get away from that dependence, then what you need to do is you need to reshape your thoughts. You want to thought reform, mind control. A little bit of brainwashing in a positive sense. Okay, so now you've gone through these 3 steps of the 4 steps of number 1. Getting a little complicated, hang in there. This is not that hard. So we have challenges that produce patience or impulse control that gives us experience, which reforms our mind. And what's the 4th thing? Well, that's confidence. So we've gone through all this. We've had, as people with Asperger syndrome, typically the thing I hear the most is rejection. So we've gone through the rejection phase, and we're probably still going through it, I think, till the day you die. And that teaches us patience, impulse control, and that teaches us or provides us with experience, neuroplasticity. We're changing our mind, we're learning to deal with it, and because of that, we now have confidence. Yeah, I'm going over these again, but we have confidence. So the next time we face a challenge, we're ready to deal with it. And the more challenges we face and come out the other end of it, the more confidence we have to face more challenges. It's cyclical. Number 2 is this: expose yourself to positive people. Now, when I was preparing my notes and I wrote that down, I thought, you're talking to people with Asperger syndrome. They don't expose themselves to people. They don't like to be around people. I don't like to be around people, with a few exceptions. I would, if it were up to me, I'd never go to the grocery store. I'd probably never leave the house. Maybe go out take a walk once in a while, but I don't like to have confrontations with people. And I don't mean arguments. I mean just confronting them. Just being in the same space with them, it bothers me a little bit. But we need to expose ourselves to positive people. So that's one of the things that we've learned, in the experience phase. Now, when we talk about exposing ourselves to positive people, did you know that right this very second, you're doing that? You are doing number 2. You're here on YouTube or whatever platform you're watching this on. And I usually upload it to more than one. You are exposing yourself to positive people. That's presuming that you see me as a positive person. So whether it's real, I mean somebody that you know that you can trust, count on, or whether it's virtual, somebody like me that's on your computer screen or your cell phone screen or whatever, your iPhone screen, or if it's both, you're exposing yourself to positive people. That's something you've learned to do that works very well. Number 3 is balance, and we've talked about this in many other videos. But when we talk about balance, we take those past experiences that were very difficult and challenging. We've taken the rejection, the hurt, the hateful things that people have said to us, the times that we were left out, we were intentionally left out, or we were pushed to the end of the line. And we've had a lot of those experiences. But what we do is, if we don't do anything, what happens is those experiences take up a disproportionate amount of our brain space. I'm speaking figuratively here, but our thought patterns, our minds are just overwhelmed with rumination about the hurts, whatever. But because we have this experience, now we know that, we can't let these things go because, well, I guess you could, but I'm not positive that you can, but I'm not sure we should let the negative things go because they are there for a reason. That's part of your learning experience, but you can't let them overwhelm you either. So somewhere in between there is a balance. And the reason that I said that we use this example a lot of times and have in the past is because the analogy that I like to use is baking a cake, Some people say balance would be a pound of sugar, a pound of milk, a pound of butter, a pound of cocoa, a pound of something else. That's not balance. Well, in a sense, I guess it is, but it's not proportional. So when you're baking a cake, you may take a pinch of this, a cup of that, 1 egg, not a pound of eggs. Maybe you take 2 eggs. I don't know, but you think of the recipe and you understand that your past experiences, those hurts, those difficulties, those times of rejection, they're actually part of the cake. It's part of your life experience. It makes life good. I know if you're like me, it's hard to even say that because I'm thinking of some of the things I had to deal with in my past. But it makes life good in the sense that it made me mentally healthy or healthier. So, we're making a cake here. We're making a cake that is good for you. So we include that, but we have to make sure that we keep it proportional. Now, there are things in life that we refer to as, or I refer to as, mental monsters. Can we just park here for like half a minute and talk about this? Have you ever been in a situation where you just knew, you absolutely, positively knew that there was somebody who was either in the process of screwing you over or they're getting ready to? Here's an example. I read a news story, been a few years ago now, about a woman who, she had a job working on computers, working with computers, I should say. And I don't know what her job was, something to do with office management. I don't know if she was in IT or data programming. I don't know what she did, but her job was to sit down and work at a computer. And she was reading in the newspaper or some online iteration of a newspaper that her employer was hiring somebody or advertising to hire somebody to do her job. And so the mental monster showed up. And the mental monster said, "You're going to get fired. They're going to take your job, pull it out from under you." So you know what she did is she made a mess out of their computers. I mean, she did a lot of damage. Show them, "You're going to fire me without even telling me," and it was horrific. So the next day, the boss comes in and she's not there. So he calls her and says, What happened? I mean, why aren't you at work today?" She said, "Well, I saw that ad in the paper getting ready to fire me." And the boss said, "No, we're not getting ready to fire you. Our business is growing and we need to hire more help doing what you do. So we're not getting rid of you. We're just opening a new office. And we need you to train this person." Probably, the story doesn't say this, but probably even going to give her a raise. So she built this mental monster about how bad this thing was going to be. I do that all the time. I think everybody does. We just project into the future, looking at current circumstances, and we really haven't learned. So what we have to do is we have to, absolutely positively, we have to put things in proportionate size. Just a pinch of salt. That's it. 1 or 2 eggs, whatever the recipe calls for. Number 4 is what I call realization. So we say that emotional pain or rejection of any kind or anything that causes emotional pain is just reality. I don't think that I can recall an entire week that I went of life without some kind of disappointment, some kind of rejection. Now, what we're talking about is personal problems, maybe difficulty at work. I'm not talking about, your furnace goes out or you have a plumbing problem. I'm talking about personal relations, and it could be something that goes wrong at work. Aspies, we actually do get fired for no reason. So you have these difficulties. There's some neighbor maybe giving you trouble, or maybe it's somebody at church. Okay, probably a lot of people at church giving you trouble. Something that you expect to go well in a relationship, and it doesn't go the way that you thought it would. What we got to do here, this is number 4, is we just have to realize, you know what? That is a part of life. We just accept life as it is, and it ain't all smooth sailing. It just isn't. Get on a boat and sail from, get in one of those, like the schooner or whatever they call them that they had back in the 18th century, 19th century, and set sail for wherever you want to go, Europe, South America, whatever. So you leave home on a nice sunny day, right? And you're several weeks at sea. Chances are it's going to rain. You're going to have some storms. It's not going to be pleasant. But you know that before you get on the boat, and you made preparations for it, right? When I take a trip in my car, I anticipate problems. I got a spare tire. I got a quart of oil in my trunk somewhere. I don't think I can find it, but it's there. I mean, I'm prepared. That's probably not going to be needed. I always carry, a gallon of water with me in the trunk just in case my engine, overheats. It depends on your car, but, I'm prepared because I know those things happen. I'm not expecting it. I'm anticipating it. There's a big difference. So I know that they do happen, so I'm going to be prepared in case they do happen. I knew a guy who was in construction, and he would build single-family homes. And he did something that I thought was really amazing, is before he would install the water heater in a new home, he'd cut a hole in the floor, and he'd put a drain in it, because he said, every water heater eventually is going to go out, and when they do, you got water everywhere. It may take it 20 years before it happens, but it is going to happen. Okay, that's kind of far in the future, but you know what? That was brilliant. And I thought, if I ever have a new home built, I'm going to tell the construction guy, the contractor, Wherever there is a water heater, I want there to be a drain underneath it. So in the eventuality, not if, but when the eventuality comes, that it goes out and we got water going everywhere. There's going to be a drain there. We're prepared for it. And, what does that cost? A few extra dollars probably. So we have realization number 5 is we work on solutions. Okay, that's probably the best spot for that analogy. I didn't even think of it till just now, but the best spot for that analogy is there is a solution. So you create solutions based upon anticipation. How do you know what to expect? Well, anticipation is based upon past experience. That's why we went over those 4 things at the very first step, is you got to have that experience to know how to deal with it. So you're thinking, man, when I was a kid, you're saying, Ken, you don't have any idea how difficult it was. Well, I kind of do because I went through that. I'm nearly 70 years old. I've seen a thing or two. I share with people what I've experienced, realizing that nearly everybody on the planet is younger than me. Okay, yeah, well, the majority anyhow. So I've been where you've been. I've had the rejection, maybe not as intense as you experienced it, but I've had it. And I went through those 4 steps we talked about earlier. I learned. So I can anticipate, what to put in the trunk before I take the trip. So we work on solutions based upon what we anticipate, based upon what we have learned from past experiences. Number 6 is we not only work on solutions, but we learn from it. Somebody once said, well, a lot of somebody's once said, or said multiple times, and I don't like this at all, but they said what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Well, first of all, that's not true. I've had a lot of things in my life that didn't kill me, and they didn't make me stronger. They made me weaker. So we just let that one kind of lie. So when you learn something, you don't learn, okay, I'm going to give myself a false lie in my head, and I'm going to tell myself, well, if it doesn't kill me, I'm going to come out of this thing stronger. Well, not physically, no, you may not. Maybe you will, but you will come out stronger because you have strengthened your ability of anticipation and preparation, because what you learned in the past, we have already said this a million times, is preparing you for future experiences. The more you do something, the better you get at it. And the more you go through the tribulations, lack of a better word, the experiences, the trauma of being a person with Asperger syndrome. If you don't learn from those things, basically, what do you do with them? Well, you ruminate and you just make yourself worse. You stew over it. You create anxiety and stress psychologically, and that often turns to, ultimately it can turn to inflammation. Seriously, it can hurt, cause pain. It can cause physical damage not because you should let it go. I don't think you should, but because you've let it grow out of proportion. Don't let it go, and don't let it grow. Speaking of which, do you see those 2 rectangles on the screen? Well, those are there. So if you want this conversation to continue, then we will just keep on talking. But if not, well, thanks for stopping by, and we'll see y'all next time.